about this today. In this video, I'm going to share my journey and my tips how I get to ask Noah Kagan to come to my Escape 9 to 5 podcast series. If you don't ask, you don't get it. So recently I have started 2 podcasts. One is called Bite Size Climate Tech. It's about a 5-minute podcast that interviews scientists and engineers about one concept in climate. They explain it to me in 2 ways, one in a complex way, the other in a way that an 8-year-old can understand. The other podcast I started and the series you see it in this YouTube channel is called Escape 9 to 5. I love those 2 podcasts very much because it's very personal to me. I get to use this chance to learn from the people that I want to learn the most. And when I was showing these podcasts to my friends, people always ask me this one single question. How did you get to talk to those people? How did you even reach out to them? Then I always had to pause as if I didn't even know where the question is coming from. And I said, I just talk to them. I just reach out to them on LinkedIn, on whatever platform. And people always look back to me as if I'm kidding, but I'm not. The truth is, just ask. That's the single best advice that you will have in life, and I truly stand by that. My point is, there's a lot of ways that you can make things happen. You have to really go out there, but I know it's not as simple as that. But I do believe everybody have this potential, and there's ways for you to do that. And today, in this video, I'm going to share my journey and my tips on how I reach out to people. And from somebody who's introvert, I used to be an absolute introvert, and now have the confidence and the courage to do all that with you today. You can find timestamp in the bar below. Let's get to it. There's 4 parts and how to cultivate this just ask concept and mindset for yourself so you can achieve whatever you want in life. So today's video, we're gonna talk about 4 parts, and I will recommend 2 books. That's very, very crucial for my journey, and I hope that can help you too. The first part is mindset shift. Embrace the adventure. There's nothing to lose. So recently, I have asked this amazing lady called Anna On from LinkedIn. I just found her on LinkedIn. It happened to be both of us. We're previous bankers, and we have now switched on to a pathless path. She's now a comedian, and she also has a show in Singapore called What's Your Story? So ask people get onto the stage, tell their story. What a cool person, right? I just reached out to her on LinkedIn. So we have done a podcast, which you see in the previous week's video.
Yes, and instead of yes, but, because when
during our interview, I also asked her, I think somebody else I wanted to reach out to is Matthew Dix, because his book Story Worthy really helps me a lot in terms of how to craft your story, how to break down that writer's block, and how to really get to work on things that you really care about. And then I asked her, I said, how should I reach out to him? He's famous and stuff. Because she's mentioned that Matthew Dix is actually her mentor. And she's like, no, just ask. It's not that difficult. He's fine. And then I reminded myself, it's the same way as I ask her as well. I reach out to her and she's like, yeah, you reach out to me on LinkedIn, and if I didn't say yes, the worst case, it would just be you didn't ask. So I think that's the first mindset shift, is there's nothing to lose here. And the second mindset shift, usually I will help myself, is I get into a different persona. I really like Ali Abdaal. He has this framework, and for every day it's you're going through an adventure. So what happened to me end of January is I went to this event hosted by Ali Abdaal and Sahil Bloom in London Business School in London, and that day I was actually reading his book Feel Good Productivity. It's here, this Feel Good Productivity. I brought it with me everywhere, so that's why now it's a very sad looking book already, but I have the signature here as well. But anyways, so my point is, when I was reading the book that day, it has this concept, says that usually what keeps us not moving forward is fear. It's not capability or other stuff. So I set out a venture for myself that day, is I'm going to go to the event. I'm going to ask Sahil Bloom and Ali Abdaal just to be on my video and say no to fear and say yes to life in 2024 with me together. And I went to the event. That's my single biggest adventure or goal, if I could say, of the day for me. And then I went there. I was If I couldn't get to them, fine, but I would try my best, because my original goal is actually I will want to go onto the stage and ask everybody to say it together with me. And eventually I didn't get onto the Q&A or get onto the stage, but I got lucky that I stayed a little bit longer. So I was at the end of the events, I did get a few seconds with both of them, which you can see it on my YouTube video nowadays. That's my, if you go to my page, that's the #1 video there. And it's really that adventure mindset. I was like, there's nothing to lose there. So what happened is I bumped into them like after the event, and I was like, look, Ali, I'm in your part-time YouTube academy. I really wanted to accomplish this my adventure today. Can you say no to fear, say yes to life with me on my video? And he said, yeah, let's do it. And we did it. And Ali here.
In 2024, we're going to say no to fear and we're going to say yes to life.
Say yes to life.
Say yes to life.
Say no to fear. Say yes to life.
And that's how it all happens. It sounds easy, but I think most of the time what's really stopping us is ourselves. Like, nobody really cares whether Ali said no or he said yes. It's only me. If he said no, then I would be discouraged at the time. But most often than no, you'll be surprised. I think people do tend to say yes. So that's the first part. Really have this mindset shift. First is tell yourself there's nothing to lose, and second is like just take it as an adventure, like gamify it. It's fun to see what kind of result that can come afterwards. So that's the first part. I need to have some water. The second part is listen first. Counterintuitively, by asking well, you need to listen first. Reason being, a lot of the people, even in daily conversations, usually we thought we're engaging in a conversation, but how many times are you really paying attention to other people? Unavoidably, when you're listening to another person, you might be in your head already contemplating another question and how you want to answer it, how you want to mention about your day, that kind of stuff. Listen first here, not just apply to how you interact with that person when you're asking the question, because usually you didn't really get to see them in person, but more I am referring to is do your own research. I've listened to a lot of podcasts and they always say you can reach out to anyone, but you need to at least show you have done your homework. If they're a busy person or famous, at least need to find something that you've watched what they have done, and you need to tell them that you've done the research and that's why you're relevant and you're worthy of their time. And that's how I wanted to say here, the counterintuitive part is listen first. Always say something that's relevant. Like the same anecdote that I shared on the day I asked Ali is I was referring to his book. And of course, I think he being a very nice person, he would probably also just say yes if I only take him like 5 seconds. But that increased my chance of success as well. So I think listen first is the second part. So the third part is once you get to that first 2 layers, so you change your mindset, you've done your research. The third part is how do you actually ask? How to ask efficiently is very, very important, because a lot of people, they just reach out. Like I personally encounter that sometimes as well. Like there's people reaching out to me on LinkedIn, there's people reaching out to me on Instagram, but who can actually break down the barriers? So usually the person who actually writes a few sentences that's relevant to you. I believe all my viewers here, it might have happened to you. Like how many times you receive an LinkedIn invitation, you just ignore it forever because that person didn't show relevancy. So the 3 key ingredients of how to ask efficiently is time, context, and relevancy. I sort of have that along the way when I was getting like 1,000 no's and trying to figure out the rules for myself. But some people summarize it better than I do, and those are the 2 books I wanted to recommend to you. One is The Third Door by Alex Banayan, and the other one is $1 Million Weekend by Noah Kagan. So both of them has a very important part about how to ask busy people to get back to you. I think the anecdote shared by Alex Banayan is extremely relevant. If you haven't read this book, The Third Door, I highly recommend everybody please read it. It's like one of the most helpful book I have read recently. But when he first set out his quest that he wanted to interview all those famous people like Bill Gates, Lady Gaga, Tim Ferriss, he was just an 18-year-old kid in college. He has encountered a lot of setbacks and stuff. He always have this third door mentality, which is you have 90% of the people go through the first door, which is normal for everyday person, and then there's people, a part of the people, they will go through the second door for VIP entrance, and there's always a third door, so you can always get like a warm introduction and things like that. But there's one thing I think everybody can apply, where he mentioned in his book. Actually, is the first famous people he interviewed is Tim Ferriss. After so many no's, he finally got to Tim Ferriss. He asked this question: how do you get to people, and a cold email tactics? It's always good to get a warm intro, but if you have to do cold email, which I have done multiple times, sometimes busy people get back to me, like the writer of Pathless Path, which inspires me a lot. He got back to me a long time ago when I first read the book, because I actually have done my research. I really resonate with this book so much, and then I write a really nicely drafted email to him. I didn't even expect that he would reply me, but he very nicely had replied me. The key thing from how to draft cold email from Tim Ferriss is like this. He have shared it here. Yeah, you can see it. So, dear so-and-so, I know you're really busy and that you get a lot of emails, so this will only take 60 seconds to read. So first is to demonstrate that it wouldn't take them too much time, because you're just like a random person in their mailbox, you know? And then the second paragraph is here is where you say who you are, add 1 or 2 lines that establish your credibility. Another paragraph here is where you ask your very specific question. And then the final paragraph is, I totally understand if you're too busy to respond, but even a 1 or 2 line reply would really make my day. And then all the best. That should be like really simple and succinct emails, to the point. And there's also another example in the $1 Million Weekend. I really like that as well. And that's, I'm gonna share like how I get to ask Noah Kagan to come to my Escape 9 to 5 podcast series. After 3 rejections, my 4th time, he finally said yes, even though now I'm not even sure whether that will happen. He has this template on his website. I will put a link down below. The final yes I get from him is actually when I reuse that template from his book. So he has this entire chapter about how you can reach out to people. And one thing that's really helpful, I actually use that, is using the template he shared here. It's on page 201. He shared this template about a really successful networker. So this is how it's done. The simple email will be breaking into 3 key points, just like this. So you need to have a short blurb about yourself, and then value you can provide. This is to say what's in it for them, and then why you're exciting to meet them. So I used this template to send an email to Noah Kagan, and he finally has said yes. Subject line needs to grab the reader's attention. It's the same way as you see people using the thumbnails and titles these days on YouTube. Everything is about attention, everything is about the hook. Nowadays, if you couldn't grab people's attention, you will quickly lose them, and then they will move on to the next email. There are so many other things that are screaming in our email box and our iPhones to asking us for attention. So, but I think those are very, very helpful. So then that's the 3rd key point, is you have to demonstrate like you're not wasting their time, you're also relevant, and what's the context. So the more specific that you ask, the easier for people to get back to you. And final part, which is very, very important, is how to deal with failure. I think failure nowadays to me is like a data point, and perseverance is the path to yes. So my personal story that I retell to Noah Kagan while I'm reading this book like 4 times is I almost was gonna give up, and then finally got a yes back from him. And then I realized it didn't take that many no to get to a yes. And even if you get to a lot of no, you still have a chance to get yes from other people. And I really like this quote from The Third Door when Alex Benayon's mentor told him, I live my life by 2 mantras. One is, if you don't ask, you don't get. 2, most things don't work out. So you do need to build up a pipeline. You have a very specific goal to reach. For example, if you're looking for a job, you're very specifically want to get to talk to certain people, and maybe you wouldn't get yes on the first place, but then you will always find a way to do that if you really want to. And then most of the time also, they sometimes will say no at the first place, but then maybe they will turn around and say, hey, by the way, I actually wanted to talk to you now. So you never know. And one thing I really like in The Third Door is this guy, he he really liked the CEO of Zappos, and then he finally reached out to the CEO of Zappos one day, and he got to shadow him in a company, like when he's only 19 or something. And throughout those 2 days, I think it's 2 days, and he got approached by an employee in the company. The employee asked him, how did you get to shadow the CEO? And then he told the story back to the CEO, Tony. And Tony does this directly from the book. Tony looked at me blankly and said, I'd be happy to, but no one ever asked. So I think it's a good start way for us to put all of those frameworks together and summarize today's video. Really, sometimes in life, you just need to ask. You would never know what the other person's reply is, and they would maybe happily to say yes. And remember that even if they don't say yes, it would just have as if you didn't ask at all. I will try to live by this for myself, and I hope that this video can also help you a little bit to have a little bit of courage to ask for things in life that can help you, and to reach out to people if you're trying to look for a job, if you're trying to do networking, or if you want to just get some insights. So that's it for today's video. It's the single biggest best advice that I would say myself give it to myself, and also hope that this will help you as well. I will see you next time.